Now, a few weeks ago, you announced that you were stepping down as the parish minister here at St.Andrew Blackadder. Just give us some background as to why you made that announcement.
I have loved being the minister of St.Andrew Blackadder. It's been a huge privilege, and one of the reasons I've loved being the minister here is it's a congregation and a situation which has asked the best of me and prompted me to give all that I have. And I have been aware in recent years that my energy levels have been getting less, and so I've been wondering at what point do I hand the baton on to somebody else. And after prayer and thought and considering some of the practicalities, decided that now was the best time for the congregation and for me to pass this on to someone else.
Neil, you've had a long and varied career in ministry. You've worked in Ministries Council, you've been Presbytery Moderator, a number of years as a parish minister in Broomhouse in Edinburgh before coming out here in 23 years here at St Andrew Blackadder. Just could you give us a couple of highlights perhaps? I know that's hard to think of, but just things that come to your mind.
So a couple of things from this last year. Last August we had what we called a ministries fair, and the idea behind that was just as a careers fair is a place where you have lots of different stalls where different types of jobs are on display. After a Sunday morning service we set up a stall around the church sanctuary for all the different ministries that we're involved in here in the congregation. And I think we had 14 different stalls around the church where people from each of the ministries was talking about what they did, and it was a great opportunity for people who are maybe not as involved in the congregation to discover, to find out, and to sign up. And for me, that was very much an expression of what Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians about the church being a body where every part has its part to play. And we certainly have endeavoured here in St Andrew Blackadder to be a church where everybody recognises that they're here, that they have a ministry, a part to play. We're always looking for ways to help people to find where they can be involved. And so that was really encouraging. And then another thing which was a great highlight was on Good Friday, for the second year, we carried a big wooden cross from the harbour here in North Berwick, about half a mile up along the streets to the front of the church building, which is right in the middle of the high street. And then we read out the Passion Story, Mark chapter 14 to 16, and our desire is to be bold yet humble. So we were telling the story of Jesus in the public space, but quite deliberately we weren't using microphones because we weren't wanting to impose that on people. So we were wanting to have that balance of saying who we are. And what was great was that we had about 100 people standing outside the front of the church when it was raining, listening to the story of Easter. And that was encouraging, both to do that and also to see the church getting outside the building, because we're much more comfortable inside the building. It's much more scary to go outside. So for me, for all of us to take that step was a big thing.
Neil, in your time, I've highlighted that you've held different positions, so you've seen the church from different perspectives. How would you say ministry's changed in your lifetime?
So when I was ordained in 1991, the church was very much still in a privileged position at the centre of society. And so the whole relationship of the church to the community, to the nation was very different. And also the role of the minister was quite well defined. So when I became a minister, you knew what the job was, and it was, you didn't have to do it that way, but at least if you weren't doing it that way, you knew what you weren't doing. Today the church is very much at the fringes, and the job of ministry has become so varied and so complex, and both of those things has brought a whole set of challenges, also created different opportunities. And as a church, I think we've struggled to understand what's happened, to accept what's happened, and to adapt to what's happened.
And given what you said there, Neil, about the range of challenges and opportunities when you are a minister, what would you say to people who are going into ministry about how they spend their time?
A concise answer for a short video to that question is quite difficult. So let me answer it by describing something which happened to me quite recently. So with the lead up to Easter, I had a bunch of funerals suddenly came in. The whole business of trying to get ready for moving house and so on. I was really, really tired, and I became aware that I was making small mistakes. They weren't big mistakes, but for example, I went up to somebody and said, would you be willing to help with a prayer on such a Sunday? And he said, yes, I'd be very happy. You do know that you've asked me to do that already. And I had no memory that I had done that. And there were a number of other little things like that, which showed me that I was operating at the edge of my limits. And then, fortunately, I got past that. And it was the week or so afterwards, what I suddenly discovered was that ideas were popping into my head. And I realized that because life had got so busy, there was no space in my head. So what I would be saying to somebody who's starting out or who's in ministry at the moment, it's really important that somehow you have space, because unless there's space, you can't think, you can't hear God, you can't generate ideas. So it doesn't matter how you get space, but get space. Go for walks. Don't take your phone with you. Don't have music in your ears. You just need space. Then the second thing I would say is discernment. With so many things that you can do, you might do, when you get lots of different ideas, which of these are the ones that really are the ones that need time and attention? And that's an exercise of discernment. And then the third thing I would say is courage. Because once you've got an idea, once you've worked out that this is what God wants you to do, it's probably going to take courage to actually do it. You'll end up disappointing people. Some people won't be on board with it. There will be difficulties and setbacks, and so without courage, nothing would happen. So space, discernment and courage would be my answer.
Excellent, thanks Neil. I have a question in terms of the church and its changing focus maybe, or changes within society. Do you think there's been a changing theology of church that people have emphasised, that are used to emphasise, and now things have changed at all?
Yes, I think there's been a huge shift in the church. I think that the importance of mission is accepted by just about everybody. I think that's partly because society has changed. I think the reality of the church has changed is that in Scotland, faith used to be something that was felt, not telt. It wasn't something we talked about, and we've just come to realise that you can't assume that people have any faith and know anything about the story of Jesus, and so it's become accepted that we need to get out there and tell the story of Jesus. That's not to say that people yet feel equipped or know how to do that, but I don't think you have to argue in the way that we had to do 30 years ago that we needed to do that. So I'm delighted that a mission focus it certainly in theory has now, I would say, is generally accepted.
Are you therefore hopeful for the future for the church in Scotland, Neil?
I've never been not hopeful for the church in Scotland because it is the Church of Jesus Christ. I remember probably 30 years ago sitting in the upstairs of a double-decker bus in Edinburgh when Jesus' words, "I will build my church and nothing will stand against it," just came to my mind. And I had that sense of Jesus just affirming and telling me that the church does not depend on us. It never has and it never will. And Jesus is building his church, and Jesus will have his church in Scotland. And I don't know what form that will take. I don't know how it will evolve and change, but there will always be a church in Scotland. And I think there are signs. For example, we had probably more people in church on Easter this year than has ever been the case. I don't know who they were. I don't know what brought them there. But there is a stirring going on in Scotland. And so I'm very hopeful for the future.
Great. Many thanks, Neil. Thank you.